Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Hi, everyone. Today, my guest is Dr. Frumi Barr, the CEO of Barr Business School, author, and scale-up advisor. And today, we'll be talking about raising the bar for entrepreneurs. Welcome, Frumi.
Thank you, Steve. I'm excited to be here. Question away.
So all of my listeners know the first question I always ask is, tell me your story, because all the stories are so different and interesting. And how did you get to be where you are?
And the trick is to make it concise, because I'm not 20 anymore, right? So I started off as a physical therapist, and this was in Montreal. I was an amputee specialist. And at one point, the physical therapist went on strike. And one of my patients said, why don't you come and tour my office furniture factory? I'd love to show you around. So I went, and he didn't know what trouble he was in, because I just had so many ideas, Steve, about how things could be done differently. And I really didn't know how to keep my mouth shut. So I just said, why don't you do this instead of that? And what would happen if you did that instead of this? And he just looked at me and said, well, you're all on strike, smarty pants. Why don't you come and see what changes you can make in the next couple of weeks? So I did, and I ended up staying there, became the chief of operations. I don't know where this came from, but it was really easy. And I bought part of the company, which was a clock company. It was brand new, never sold anything. We just had a design patent. And I thought, because I knew numerous office furniture reps, that it would be a piece of cake, but it wasn't. And one of my reps said they were meeting with Sears on Monday. And I said, you know what? I think I'll go instead of you. And so I think you can appreciate that I asked a question nobody ever asked before. I said, tell me, that you're very nice to want to put my clocks in your sample room, but how do you make money in this business? And he looked at me and he said, Frumi, in the 10 years I've been a buyer, nobody's ever asked me that. But here you are. And he showed me a picture of a California sunset with a screen printed dial and a quartz movement. He said, can you make these? And I said, yes. So I picked him up a week later to go on a site visit, which he'd never done before either. And I took him to an Italian rehabilitation center where my clocks were coming off the conveyor belt. And that's how I started my company, which grew astronomically in 2 or 3 years. I also had a licensing agreement with the largest US clock company. They sold my clocks in the US, and I imported their pieces into Canada, so I didn't have to pay 12.7% duty, which priced the clocks out of the market. That was my first company, and I sold it very quickly when the interest rates went to 21%. I went to my buyer and said, this isn't good. When I quoted you, believe it or not, the interest rates were 9%. So here's the name. I
remember those days.
Do you? And you know what? I said, here's the names of three of my competitors who would just love to get rid of me. So we basically sold the company in 2 weeks. So that was my first gig. My second was, because of that, the architect who designed my factory invited me to join his architectural firm. He had 3 architects. We grew it to 60. We won all kinds of awards for commercial buildings with atriums and all of that. And I married him after 3 years. And we moved to Newport Beach. He said he always had designs on me, so that was kind of cute. We moved to Newport Beach.
Nice pun.
Nice pun. We moved to Newport Beach. We ended up not staying married, but I was invited to look at a product from Brazil that was a hair product. And it was a very difficult product because It was for Black and brown people, but white people didn't want to invest in that kind of a product, nor did Black or brown people want to invest in a white woman. So eventually, I found an infomercial producer who decided to license it, and that business grew literally to 150,000 users in a month.
Wow.
It disrupted a $1 billion industry. So I ended up in a class action lawsuit when the licensee decided to copy the product. Well, that was a pretty hairy thing. And then I got calls from all around the country from women who wanted the product back. So I engaged with Debbie Allen, the choreographer, and created another company. And that one grew to 9 million the first year. So that's where my interest in growth came from, Steve, because all these companies grew wildly, and I just had a degree in physical therapy. When I had my second infomercial company, I went back to school, I got an MBA, and later I got a PhD. And that's how I arrived where I am now. So for the last many years, I've been working with CEOs and their teams to teach them how to grow safely, not with hair on fire like I had.
Oh.
How's that story?
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm really intrigued by the product, the hair product, right?
Mm-hmm.
That nobody wanted to invest in, and then so how did you wind up doing an infomercial then?
Well, I realized that was the way to get the product out. You can't sell things one-to-one. Even my classes in my school.
Sure.
You have to find a vehicle to do one-to-many. And the secret to this product, the reason it disrupted an industry was because it came from Brazil, where it had been for 50 years. And the hairstylist in the infomercial put his finger in it and went, "Can't do that with the caustic relaxer, can you?" That was unscripted. It was his own thing. He did it all the time, but it wasn't in the script. And that's what made the product fly off the shelf, so to speak. Wow. So we sold we had 150,000 people in our loyalty program.
Yeah. That's really interesting because, one of the things that I work with my clients on is, what makes your product or service unique, right? What makes, and of course that's the subtitle of the, of the podcast, what makes unique, right? YOUNIQUE. So clearly that unique thing really resonated with the market.
Yes. Oh, they loved the product so much so that when I got stuck with this class action lawsuit, when the infomercial producer copied the product and didn't do it right, I had to start all over again. And, starting over again when you're coming back from not just zero, but minus 100, so to speak, I had to find an investor. And the secret sauce was creating a profile of my perfect investor so that I wasn't looking for money, I was looking for a person. And that's what I work on with a lot of entrepreneurs. Who is the person that you need? Is it a business partner? Describe that person.
That avatar is so important. So talk about what you're doing now with the Barr Business School and how did that come to be?
Well, speaking of avatars, my avatar for my school is a fellow named Ned. And he called me during the beginning of the pandemic and said, "Frumi, what am I going to do? I have a benefit business and I can't go into any businesses and I can't shake anybody's hand. What's going to happen?" So he also had 2 other businesses. So what we decided to do was teach him how to grow his business so he could wash, rinse, and repeat with the other 2 businesses. So instead of a normal coaching, mentoring relationship, I created lessons for him. And every week we would meet and I would teach him. And at the end of the year, his business grew 37.5%, which is really quite amazing for a benefits company during COVID.
during the pandemic. Yes, absolutely. The beginnings of the pandemic. That's great.
So I thought to myself, that was the most fun I've had in a long time. What should I do with my courses? So at first I put them into one of the notable platforms. And then I was introduced to a CEO who was at Techstars here in LA. And he created his own platform where I could put my school. He invited me to a workshop that was $497. And it was a 6-day fast track workshop, which I thought was perfect for me because I love fast tracking. In those 6 days, I designed my entire school. I designed an empathy map, which is who is your ideal entrepreneur to take the courses? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? What are they afraid of? What are their goals? That was the empathy map. From there, we created what Sam called the hero's journey. That was the CEO of the platform. But there was a glitch, Steve, and this is where the rubber hit the road. The platform was based in Ukraine, and Sam's investors pulled out
Oh no.
after the war started. I had to start again, but I was very fortunate because I finished that workshop in the 6 days. I caught the attention of one of Sam's marketing people, Charlie, and he called me and said, Frumi, I want to help you with your school. I'm so excited. I mean, you finished that workshop. 80 other people didn't. I was blown away. Can I work with you? So I worked with Charlie and we recreated the whole school again. And our first client is the Cybersecurity Global Alliance. They're the largest nonprofit in the world after 2 years. And they are just about to launch my courses. And part of what we're doing is we're going to have a huge impact because we're giving courses to veterans as a thank you for serving our country.
Nice.
And so that's our social impact strategy, if you like. And then the rest is, new clients, 9-course mentorship, and all of those good things.
So who is the ideal client? Who the ideal student for your school? I mean, obviously veterans, but above and beyond that.
So remember I said my businesses all grew. My hair was on fire. I had a degree in physical therapy.
Yeah.
My courses were all designed for the old me who grew several companies without a business education and with no knowledge of how to scale safely. So everything I do is to that old me and to Ned, my avatar. So it's for anybody who wants to start and grow a business and not fail. Our mission at the Barr Business School is to change that miserable statistic that so many companies fail in the first 5 years. And the courses are my favorite one, which I just created, called The Path from Failure to Success. Because everybody fails, but do they get up, use the failure as stepping stones to the future? How do you do that? The other courses, entrepreneurship and leadership, people and culture, strategy, execution, cash management, data management, time and energy management, and communication skills. And all of them are supported. They're all online. They're all in small sound bites. So the lessons, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Nobody has to listen to me for an hour and a half. And then I've written 160 book summaries in the last 20 years on business books, very comprehensive summaries. And so all of the courses are supported with summaries and a quiz and a certificate of completion. So I'm very excited about the school.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds amazing. So you take them through now. Is each of the courses then a whole series of these little snippet kind of short video things, and presume there's like workbooks and things like that you work through while you're watching, or as you're watching the video, or as you watch through each of the pieces.
So let's say the people and culture course has 25 lessons. And at the end, it has a quiz. It's kind of a reminder quiz. It's not meant to trip
Sure.
anybody up. And then there's wonderful book summaries that support the learning, like Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Mm-hmm.
Because Simon wrote the foreword to my own book, A CEO's Secret Weapon, How to Accelerate Success. And the book is about the 50 CEOs that I interviewed from around the world, and I accumulated 40 challenges. Can you imagine all those unique people, each one with a different challenge? And I synthesized them into 10 chapters. And that's how you use your why as the engine to overcome the challenges that you will inevitably face.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. So culture is so important. Making sure that people, all the people on your team, share your fundamental values, which is where culture comes out, right? It's how do you behave in response to the values that you share?
And not only that, not only knowing your values, but how are you going to keep your values alive? So one of my favorite ideas about that is what I call a little book of emails. So let's say our number one value at the Barr Business School is family first, both human and furry. So let's say my marketing friend Charlie's dog is sick. I would say, stop the meeting, go take care of your dog. That's what's first. We live those values. So what we do is, let's say Charlie enacts another value. I would send him an email saying, Charlie, congratulations. You lived one of our values today. I want to thank you for whatever he did. And that way, when someone new comes into the company, they read that little book of emails. And it's much more powerful than just saying our value is make mama proud. What does that mean? It might mean something different to the first person, employee number 2, and something different to employee number 23. So how do we keep them alive? I think that's the key to culture, is not just knowing what your values are, but really having a strategy for keeping them in everybody's front of their mind.
Oh, absolutely. Are you familiar with David Friedman's book, Culture by Design? Do you know this one?
Yes. I haven't summarized that one, but I do know it.
Yeah. So one of the things that he says in his book, of course, is that, the values, you need to be able to observe them, right? You can't just write down platitudes like integrity. What does that mean? Right? It means we do what we say and we say what we do, and everything, and even, everything is a promise, and even things are sometimes implied. Right. That's what integrity means. It means that, that the whole system holds together. But one of the things that he suggests, and I think this is a really fascinating idea, is that you pick a culture, a value of the week. And you start every meeting during that week with people sharing examples of where they've seen that value.
I love that. And you know what? That's particularly important in today's world with remote teams. So the teams that I work with, we run through all the values. So everybody names a value on the team. And if anybody's late to the meeting, they have to say them all.
I love that. So,
you learn the values pretty quickly that way, I can tell you.
You would.
Yes.
So, a couple of times you've mentioned scaling safely.
Yes.
I'd like to unpack that a little bit here. Can you talk a little bit about what that means? What would unsafe scaling look like versus safe scaling?
I love that. I think it's important to have a system for scaling. There's 2 major systems that you probably know of. One is Vern Harnish's, formerly Gazelle's, now Scale Up. And the second is Gino Wickman's Entrepreneur's Operating System. Those are two excellent systems that go through the values, the purpose, the big, hairy, audacious goal, but most importantly, it's having an execution plan. It's knowing what your priorities are and who's responsible for each priority. And then it's the discipline of having a daily stand-up meeting, a weekly strategy meeting, a monthly review of priorities, and what I call 4 12-week years, so that every quarter you plan your priorities. Some of them are carried over, some of them might be new. Everybody reports on where they're at. Everyone in the company knows which priority they're supporting and what the KPIs or the OKRs are for measuring that success. And then in between, after 12 weeks, there's a full week to plan the next quarter. And I think it's the discipline of having those plans that allows people to grow safely. Because otherwise, you create a plan in December, and then you're not living it because it's in a drawer somewhere. So you have to keep the plan alive. And that's what scaling safely means to me. Otherwise, it's chaos. And when you're growing fast, the time to learn the disciplines is early on, not when you're growing fast, because then you don't even have time to think. This should all be something that's in your bones. So you know, okay, this is our planning week. What do we have to focus on? And that's what safe means to me.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So I'm familiar with both of those. And by the way,
of course,
scaling up was the first one, right?
Yes.
And Gino was actually a student of Vern and said, we need some kind of an operating system, some kind of a systemization of these Rockefeller habits of those, right? There's actually another system, a follow-on system, in which I'm an adherent. It's called Catapult, which is a platform for taking sort of EOS to the next level, and giving the all of those KPIs. Because most of the time, I don't know if you've had this problem, but most of the time with EOS, right, you wind up running out of a spreadsheet to keep track of what are the metrics, right? What are the KPIs for each individual? What are the rocks and the milestones for the quarter? And what Catapult does is it puts it all into one platform, and it's a completely scalable system that you can, you have the level 1 KPIs, which drive the overall company, which is all the CEO needs to worry about. Sure. And then below that are the level 2 KPIs, which we'll call them the C-suite, or maybe the vice presidents, or the leadership team needs to worry about. And you can continue to scale that down all the way through all the levels of the organization. But it provides a very, very quick dashboard. And as you talked about, the rhythm of accountability and you can actually run the meetings and put, which KPIs do you want to talk about every week within the context of the platform. So
Vern uses Align Today, and that's similar. And then there's another one called Metronome, which is out of Canada.
I know Shannon. I know Shannon.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, she was at Gazelle's when I was there.
And her 3-Hag Way is a really great book.
Yes. So I mean, that's the important thing is they're all very similar. They have different names, but the important thing is that people should follow them. And that's right. In my school, it's kind of a mashup of those. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I find that KPIs aren't the answer. OKRs are better for some positions than KPIs. So, flexibility within those systems is also important. But the very important thing is that people do that. One system or the other, I don't care.
And you must have that rhythm that you talked about, of having, your weekly meetings, your quarterly business reviews, if you want, or, rocks meetings, or whatever you want to call them, right? Once a quarter. making sure that you're staying on track and that you're staying on top of all of the issues as they come up.
I knew that we would have a lot in common.
Yeah. So Frumi, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out? Okay.
The best way is Dr. Frumi, DrFrumi, Dr. Frumi at scaleupadvisors.biz. Scaleupadvisors.biz.
Okay. We'll make sure that's in the
Another way is
the show
LinkedIn.
notes.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can't miss me. And as you said,
Great.
we have several hundred connections in common.
I couldn't believe how many people we know in common. So
yeah, because we're part of the growth community.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that concludes our show. So thanks to my guest, Dr. Frumi Barr, the CEO of Barr Business School, an author and scale-up advisor. I hope you learned something about raising the bar for entrepreneurs. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.